Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Good, Jason. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good, man. Welcome to Leading and Serving Podcast. This is episode 16.
16?
I know, sweet 16.
This is crazy. Who would have thought it would have taken off? And I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's been a lot of fun. It's great to be with you today.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it's good to be here. There's just a ton of things going on in our world right now, isn't there?
There is.
I mean,
there's
it's
a lot going on.
Just crazy.
It is. A lot to absorb, a lot to learn, a lot to think about, a lot to...
Yeah, a lot to wonder even what voices do I listen to, what sources. I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous.
It's been a lot of information in the last, 4 or 5 days.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got friends who are missionaries in Ukraine, and they are stateside. They were here for furlough, for vacation for some time and support raising, but they were not allowed to go back a couple of weeks ago when they were scheduled to.
Oh, wow.
And so they are actually stateside, but a lot of people that they serve with and live with over there that they call home, are fleeing west, just on the road for hours and hours and hours, just trying to make a 6-hour trip. It's really crazy. And
wow.
So we're praying for them, and
for sure,
there's a lot. They have an apartment in Kiev, and I'm not sure if it's still there.
Oh wow!
It's just unreal to think about some of these things.
It is.
And
it is.
But also hear that the quote pandemic ends tomorrow, according to the CDC or something like that. That's what I've heard. I haven't looked it up on the news, but
that's interesting. I'm glad it's ending.
I guess the statement is COVID still exists, but it's no longer quote a pandemic.
Oh, okay.
So
doesn't fall underneath the guidelines.
Right.
Right.
I don't know. So what are we going to do with our lives?
I'm looking forward to going back to normal and not wearing a mask.
We're all going to find out we have tan lines around our nose and our chin.
Yes. And with the weather breaking, now we can it'll go back to, you can have a full face burn.
I hope what you're saying is true.
Yes.
That the weather is breaking.
Well, I mean, it's going to be 60s this week for us. Here in Indianapolis.
True.
So,
but there is always false promises.
Right. I know. I'm trying to focus on the positive here.
Right.
I know Indiana likes to mess with my head, but every little bit of sunshine I can enjoy, I'm up for.
Right. Well, let's go for it. We're going to plow ahead and live life to the fullest, right?
That sounds perfect.
There we go.
That sounds perfect.
Picnics in February and the weather breaking.
I'm not sure I'm going that far, but okay. Yeah. Especially with muddy ground.
Nice. So we had a listener write in as they've listened to the last 5 episodes, especially where we've been talking about the 5 voices.
Okay.
And they had a great idea that I thought we would do today. Because, we talked about, when we get done with all 5, we're going to recap them and kind of talk through them, right?
Right.
So the question was, what is Chris's voices? What is his blend?
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know where this is going. So he said, why don't you have Chris take the 5 voices assessment and then talk about the results on the air and see what he thinks. If it sounds good, if it kind of matches up, and just kind of talk through it a little bit.
This is why this makes total sense now. This is, I mean, I was not prepped for this, but
were not.
That's okay.
So tell you what, let's pause the recording.
Okay.
I've got the assessment queued up for me on the laptop over here.
Okay.
And it'll take just 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
We'll run through. I think it's 80 questions. There's some goofy ones on there, but I'm here to guide you through, Chris.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Jason.
And then we'll hit record once we get the results, and we'll just chat through it.
Okay, sounds good.
And we'll see how it goes.
All right, sounds great.
Cool. We'll be back in just a moment.
We'll be back.
Cue the Jeopardy theme song music or something like that. All right, well, welcome back.
Yes, welcome back.
You survived.
I survived. It is a great opportunity. I've been meaning to do this anyways, but it's just, I'm glad you kind of called me out and said, hey, take this real quick. Let's do this. And the questions obviously weren't hard. And, we were talking off mic is that there's some things that have changed in my life that have caused me to lean more towards one way or towards the other.
Yeah.
And I think that it's great to know that at some level that, some of these things can change over time.
Sure.
You might want to grow something about yourself to make something in your life stronger, and that might bring out a stronger voice over time.
Right.
But it was just, so I love them being able to work from or understand where I'm currently at, just so I can understand myself better.
Right.
And so I can help guide those around me better because I understand myself better.
Right.
And that's, even in that, we talked about that off mic as well. It's like, when I'm trying to coach one of my guys to work through something, then I know why the feelings that I have are why I have them, and they might not necessarily have them, but I might because of the way I know what I know about myself.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's really hard to discern sometimes the way we feel we were wired, the way we were created, the way we were born, versus the way we've learned over time. That sometimes we have a great mentor, we have a perceptive parent or somebody who speaks into our life at a young age. It's like, hey, you've got a weakness you need to kind of work on.
Right.
Let's work on this. And, so you work on it for 10 years and then you take this test. You're like, well, that doesn't sound like me. But it was at one point.
Right.
But you've really worked on that. And it may be not a strength, but.
Well, and wouldn't you say that coaching in of itself has come a long way in the fact that I think when I was younger, the goal was to try to more focus on your weaknesses to try to make them stronger, where I feel like culturally in some of the podcasts that I listen to that they're trying to kind of get you to dive into your strengths and try to be the best you can be, recognizing that you do have some weaknesses like we all do, and that, you can know that it's there. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're any less, you're any less of a person or anything. It just recognize it for what it is and then focus on your strengths and your abilities versus trying to constantly fix what you might think is, or what others might think is wrong, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, because your weakness will never be your strengths.
Right. Like, it's just never going to happen, and that's okay. God made each one of us different, and that's okay.
Yeah. If you play baseball or basketball, and you're right-hand dominant, and you try and learn how to hit left or make free throws with your left hand, that's never going to be your desired.
Right, your go-to.
Yeah, it's not going to be your strength.
Right.
Sure, there's some guys who do really good job of switch hitting.
Right.
But that might actually be their strength, is being ambidextrous.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not that they, spent 20,000 hours trying to learn how to bat left-handed. They just kind of were naturally strengthened.
And I have no doubt in 20,000 hours that they probably got better at it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not going to be their strongest ability.
Right.
If that makes sense. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think there's a realization going on in our culture that, if we were to focus on our weaknesses and we're trying to make them all strengths, then everything rests on us. That we are the perfect leader with no weakness, with no downfalls, that we can do anything and everything all the time perfect. And the realization is that, no, we need other people.
Right.
Everyone serves on a team for the most part. There's some solo stuff out there.
Right.
But in the most part, if you're not serving on a team and you are solo, you're working with other people.
Right. Yes.
You're still talking to them or selling to them or you're still interacting. And so leaning on other people as part of your team of knowing, hey, that's my weakness, but that's your strength. Let's team up.
Right.
Well,
and even with the COVID environment that we talked about, we're just ending, like it was almost that is some of those things have popped out severely in multiple teams to recognize that, hey, we need each other. We need to work on this because of this, that, and the other. But it's also recognized that some things you don't need everybody for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. I guess
we've left them in suspense long enough.
Right. I guess. Right.
There's the drum roll, something like that. Chris, what was your top 3 voices?
So my top 3 are connector, creative, and pioneer.
All right. And that was followed up, I think, by nurture and then guardian last.
Correct.
Right. So one of the things to remember when you look at your results is that you are not solely one voice. You are a blend of all 5. So even though guardian is the fifth voice, it still is present in your life. It's just much harder for you to access.
Yes.
And utilize. Okay. It's still there. But tapping into that voice is more difficult. And you're going to do it through the lens of connector creative.
If I need to tap into it, I'll just call my wife.
There you go. That's right. That's right. Opposites attract, and
Right.
that's why we marry well, right?
Right.
That's right. So connector, if you remember, connectors are champions of relational networks, collaboration, effective communication. This is the highlight of a connector. Do you feel like that accurately?
Yes, I do feel like that is accurately
pretty
the
close.
case. Yeah.
Okay.
And I get frustrated with my communication when it's not effective.
Right.
So it's totally me.
Yeah. And connectors tend to communicate with great passion, with great vision. And so, I would say from an observational standpoint, I'm
see
with
it?
you on that. Yeah. Yeah. So a creative then, in your second voice, this is, walking down the scale here. Creatives are champions of future ideas, innovation, organizational integrity. The core integrity of an organization, that our walk better match our talk. Do you feel like that's pretty strong as well?
Yes, very strong.
Okay. Maybe an example of.
I think that when I was younger, I was told that that integrity, organizational integrity, is huge, and I think it starts in the small stuff, and trying to show those things to the people that you're working with is definitely a real thing.
Yeah.
Because life gets muddy.
Yeah.
And it can easily go down a path you don't want to go down.
Right.
So yes,
Right.
I totally agree.
So and if people were to go back 3 or 4 episodes, I forget now, where we interviewed you as part of the podcast.
Oh yes, yeah.
You said the word integrity numerous times.
I did. I did.
Trust and integrity is huge for you.
It is.
So then the pioneer voice, being your third, might be a little bit harder to discern once you get in that third and fourth voice. It kind of blends in a little bit more. But a pioneer is about strategic vision, results focus. We're going to push the ball down the court, problem solving. Does that feel like that sounds a little familiar?
Yeah, I mean, I see some of those parts, and it's funny because I even said to you, I was like, I think some of these things are growing. Like I'm learning more and getting stronger with some of them because of influences on my life currently. But I don't, it's one of those things I don't know that I'm always that great about, but I do know that they're important, and they're important to me in my life, in what I'm doing. So yes, I think it's very much there.
Yeah.
So
I see it driving you for sure.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I'm curious to know how much, in like 3 or 5 years from now, like I'm curious to know, as businesses grow, they go through that different life cycles, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is going to shift with my life cycles of my businesses. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I was like, oh man, this is spot on for where I'm at, which is just, I've struggled with these in the past because I felt like I could direct where I wanted to go, that kind of thing. But like you said, just stay true to what I thought, truly is important to me. And that's really helped me through even just taking the questions. And so I think it's spot on, and I really, it was good.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So a couple more things, a connector creative pioneer, that blend of voices in particular, really loves visioning the future, especially where people are concerned, so that not just yourself, but other people can achieve their full potential.
Yes.
How do you see that working out at times?
I totally agree with that. It's people on my team. I want the best for them, and I want them to get to their fullest potential that they want. I have multiple conversations with different people that work with me, and like, what do they want? What do they want for their future? Or are there any things that they want to learn? Things that are important to them are important to me, and trying to make all that come to fruition.
That's cool. Yeah, I've seen that in that. My oldest son works for you, and I have seen that play out, not just from your perspective, but also how he talks about working with you. That he feels like you got his back.
Yes.
At any point, any time, you got his back, and he loves that. And he's a pioneer first voice. So, He's like, somebody's on my team. I'm ready to go.
Right.
Let's push it. Let's go. So a natural connector, creative pioneer, thinking about that communication aspect, loves getting people on board with great ideas.
I do. I totally do.
That's why we get along, I think.
Yes.
Because I love ideas, and we're always...
Right. I love talking about ideas, too.
Yeah. We just... I think it might be on the challenges. Let's see. So a challenge for a connector creative is that as these ideas come up, can find it difficult to discipline your talent and remain committed once the initial excitement has worn off.
Yes.
Is that a little bit of a struggle?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is, and probably why my wife gets frustrated with me sometimes, because I've got a new idea.
I know. I share this with you. I share this with you so much that, I mean, you and I sit down and we talk about a million ideas.
Yes.
And how many we execute.
My wife
One.
Yeah. My wife even said when I started another business, she's like, so how long are you going to do this? And she would like, she's the one that brings me to task and is like, okay, so I need you to define a timeline. Right. Like, you're going to stick with it for how long? Like, and then I know, I'm like, oh, crud. It's on a calendar somewhere.
That's right. That's right. Well, Chris, thanks for playing along.
Yeah, thanks. This was definitely put me on the spot. And you know what? I got to be honest with you, Jason. I did appreciate it. It's good to chat with you and good to go over this. I'm excited that we could do this on air because I didn't even think about, somebody might be listening to this hesitant to take it, and not sure how long it's going to take, or I think that you can learn a lot of things from it. So let me be the first to tell you that if you haven't taken it, today is a great day to do it.
That's right. That's right. So. And you can find the link in the show notes.
Yeah.
It's a free assessment. There's no cost. Took 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah, not very long at all.
Yeah. And so love for you to jump in there. And I mean, kind of next step for me and you is that we're trying to get your team together.
Yes.
So that we can talk about all the voices and how those blend on the team and how it works together and benefits there of not just knowing yourself but knowing others.
Right. And I mean, trying to bring all this together with those different people with these different skill sets and trying to blend that team together is my expectation is it's going to take us to a whole nother level to just to better understand each other so that we can, and from my perspective, giving me a greater opportunity to help them be able to understand them better, also help them accomplish the things that they want.
Right.
So,
right.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Super looking forward. Thanks for taking this time, Jason, and chatting with me, and thanks for putting me on the spot too.
Yeah. Thanks for not running from the room.
No.
Being blindsided.
Yeah.
Loved it. All right, so we've got a great interview coming up here in a moment. Zack Killey is joining us. Zack is a good friend of ours who has works with me here at the church, but is also doing the training in the giant worldwide stuff with
That's
5
exciting.
voices and the tools. And he happens to share your voice order.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so there's 2 of you behind the mic here in a moment.
I'm not sure what to think about that.
It's going to be scary, isn't it? Yeah. So, you ready to jump over?
Yeah, let's jump.
All right, here we go.
Hey, Zack, thanks for joining us today.
No problem, man.
I appreciate your time and appreciate you spending some time with us because I understand that you and I have some commonalities about
what's a finality? Just out of curiosity. I'm sorry, I just got to be that guy.
So we obviously have different of the same 5 voices set up, and Jason put me on the spot today and decided that I needed to take the test right now.
Yeah.
So I took the test like right now, and then we came back and followed up and found out that I am a connector creative pioneer.
Hey, me too, bud.
Yes. So why don't you give me some of your wisdom on this? Because the way I understand it, you are also learning about the 5 voices and also sharing it with people around you as well.
For sure. Jason has been doing this longer than me, and he's much more knowledgeable than me. And also, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to go into because Jason just kind of looked at me and was like, hey, man, you want to come on the podcast and talk about the 5 voices? I was like, okay, sure, yeah. What do I talk about? Just talk about it. Like, oh, okay. So, what do you want to hear?
Well, tell us a little bit of, like,
Yeah.
the superpower of a connector. Like, where do connectors shine? What are their strengths, and how do they lean into influence in their lives?
Connectors are people. They love people. They kind of cherish the ability to say, I've got a guy for that. Like when a situation arises that you know somebody that can fill that gap for someone else, and you love bringing that to the table and contributing in that way. And so part of that is also, I don't know that it's one of the maybe finer points of the Connector Creative Pioneer, but just finding enjoyment in other people recognizing that you did that, like that's part of it. And I mean, I don't know that I'm necessarily like that, but kind of on the broader spectrum, that is kind of a connector thing.
In general, yeah.
But yeah, it's all about how can I kind of get people fired up about this? How can I get people excited about this? How can I bring people together in this? But having the creative voice in there and the pioneer voice as your third voice, there's also a level of kind of looking to the future. I mean, all three of those voices are future oriented.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, looking at my life, it definitely explains why I have a hard time hitting the gym, because I'm like, someday, but like, that's going to be great when that finally happens. But yeah, it can be kind of hard to live in the now as a connector creative pioneer, because you're so fired up and so excited about planning for the future, but getting other people fired up about, what's in store. And then, as our third voice pioneer, there's a little bit of that go-getter in us, but maybe it's not our most natural quality to just go get it. We're like, we kind of have to we have to force ourselves into that headspace sometimes. And so that one is hard for me. But, once you're aware of it, that makes it a lot easier.
So what are some of the things that I mean, you just explained those things really well, and I don't know. I'm sure the creative side plays a part, because you're very musically talented and have some of that going on where I do not. But I'm curious to know, how has that played out in other parts of your life?
The creative aspect. Well, you kind of got, so with the five voices, creative doesn't necessarily just mean like, it's not necessarily creative in the way we often think of creative. It's more about like innovation, more about planning and getting fired up about like having ideas and wanting to implement them. Is that a fair way of putting it, Jason?
I think so, yeah.
And so, part of that is being able to look at things from a different perspective. And I think that's where you kind of get the classical view of a creative, like an artist, like a painter or a musician. They're generally more likely to think in abstract ways. And so I think that's why it's easier for them to kind of think towards the future and kind of come up with these new ideas and stuff, because they see things a little differently. But the other part of that is you're not always so understood. And so, there's drawbacks to being, to having creative as one of your first voices, is that oftentimes you'll say something, you'll put it out there, and the rest of the room is not tracking. And so that's really interesting, though, when that conflicts with your connector, where you're just kind of always go, 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 let's go get these people fired up about this. And so like connector creative, I would say there's an aspect of where you really need to kind of think through what you need to say, because if you just start talking, you're likely to say something stupid. And so like you really need to like carefully speak. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing if everybody knows that that's your voice, if that's who you are. But if you walk into a room of people you don't know and you just start talking, you can make a bunch of stupid statements pretty quickly. So
That may make 100% of sense in your mind.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, that's one of the big things with the creative voice, is saying like, I need you to give me room to express myself and to kind of explain myself. because it's probably not going to come out so naturally. And so you're going to have to bear with me it's kind of like you're working it out as you're saying it sometimes.
And the
that's
job of other voices is to try and draw it out, to find the gold in what you're
100%.
talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of the 5 voices is when they're all working together, it makes one cohesive organism. Like everybody's working together and playing off of each other and building each other up. It's when you have the unhealthy parts of those voices start popping out that you start to see conflict and things start to fall apart.
I think what's cool about the 5 voices, that we're a blend of the 5. And so your second voice being creative, the future ideas that you're thinking about and dwelling on are going to be expressed through the lens of connector. And so you're probably, not that a connector creative can't come up with process or task type ideas or, those type, developing systems or something like that. Most of the ideas where you shine would be through, future ideas that involve the network of people and resources of, if we were to do this, if we developed this in the future, it would probably involve your network is
Right.
a huge component to your success. Compared to like
That's interesting.
A pioneer creative, they're going to be like, what is our strategy? What is our logic? Here's a great idea, but it's going to be a very strategic idea, very logical. We're going to take over the world kind of idea. And a connector creative is going to be more, how can we benefit people? Like Zach said, we're people. So.
Yeah. We are people, but also I think something that the connector has to be very cognizant of is the fact that while you may think you're doing the best thing for everybody, you may not always be, even though you think you are. And so that's why, like, for instance, I think it would be the same, right? That Chris's last 2 voices are nurture, guardian, right?
Yep.
And so those are going to come less likely to us. Those are the people that are going to stop you and go, well, wait, this is why that's not going to work. Or to say, well, wait, actually, so-and-so's been, saying this to me. And so that's really going to upset them if you do this, because those people are like ground level, deep relationships with people, where we're kind of like more of a broad, let's get people fired up. Let's like, galvanizers, like it's like, I have this idea. I want you to believe in this idea. And we're pretty good at getting people to see it. But we need nurturers and guardians beside us saying, whoa, buddy, like, I know why you're excited about this, but you didn't think about these things. And you're going to have to figure out how to bridge this gap for nurturers and guardians, because they're not future thinkers. They're very present mindset people.
Yeah.
They want to know right now, how is this going to work? How are we ever going to make this happen? What's the history look like of this? Can you prove this to me? And so we need nurturers and guardians in our lives to kind of walk us through our blind spots.
That's interesting that you should say that, because I know that my wife is a guardian, and for a long time, I thought that she was kind of poo-pooing everything I came up with, if that makes sense. But quickly realized that she wasn't. She was just trying to help me think through it.
And so that's a really mature, that's a very mature connector quality for you to recognize that, because it's really easy for a connector to take everything as like harsh criticism.
Right. And that's actually, it's been a growth process that I didn't realize that until we had gotten to the point where I recognized, hey, she's not trying to knock my idea. She's trying to help me think through my idea to make sure that I'm, successful in whatever it is that I go down.
Yeah.
So now we have different conversations than what we did when we probably first got married, just because I didn't understand what was going on.
And as you've learned that, she's probably become more thought out in the way she approaches you on the things that she wants to critique you on, right? She probably tries to explain to you like what exactly she's trying to say, that she's not just knocking your ideas now, in order to build that. I mean,
well, and I think since now that I know what she's doing, I can ask more questions,
Right.
And to be able to figure out what she's really talking
Right.
about versus just cutting it off and walking away.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That totally makes
So
sense.
like now it's just like, she's more like, okay, so what's your plan? And I'm more open to having that conversation with her because now I know.
You know where it's coming from.
Right, exactly.
Right. But you needed to know that.
Right.
Right.
And I didn't know that we've been married for, I don't know, a long time. But at the beginning, I didn't know that.
Right.
So it was definitely like a headbutting, conversation, and I didn't enjoy it at all.
My fiance will get on to me about something. Well, she's not even getting on to me about something. It's the exact same thing. Well, she'll be like, well, like you may be offending people by doing that. And maybe you're coming off a little brash there or whatever. And I'm like, whatever. And she's like, well, don't be mad. And I'm like, I'm not mad. I know you're right, but I don't want to admit that I know you're right.
Exactly.
I want to pout right now. You know, like,
I don't want to talk about it either.
right. You just told me exactly what I needed to hear, and I didn't want to hear it.
Right.
Like it's.
Well, and I think that over time, which I'm sure you're going to get there faster than I did, but when I was younger, I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear the pushback. I didn't want to hear what it took to help me grow.
Right.
And so now at this point in my life, I'm constantly searching for it now. It's a flip of the coin where before I had never wanted it. Now I can't get enough of it because I feel like at this point, if I focus on it and try to help, it'll help me grow faster versus the reverse.
And Jason brought this up. We were actually talking about this on for me yesterday. Is how like I get really kind of defensive when I meet people that come off as fake to me. Like there are certain red flags that just start going up. Yeah, you're laughing because you get it. But like there's certain red flags that start going up, and I immediately kind of like back off a step, and I'm like, not necessarily like I don't trust you,
right?
But you're now going to have to prove to me that these red flags are unwarranted and that I am wrong,
right? Because
all of your behaviors are now matching up with everything I've ever seen come out of the people that have burned me. And that was the point he made, was like, you've probably been burned. And that's probably, I mean, and
I so know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so like overly, this sounds horrible, but like when people are just like happy in ways that normal people aren't happy, I'm like, that's sketchy.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right.
Why are you so smiley?
Or
why are you
better
trying to sell me on this?
So
what is going on?
What are you hiding?
Yeah, right, right.
Just come out with it.
Right. And which is really bad because like I think for some people like that's like it's kind of their business face is what we were talking about yesterday is like for so many people it's just very common to just really be smiley and happy because like they've been taught that's what people want to see and they're not probably wrong. We're probably just like overtly sensitive to it. Right. And in a lot of cases I do find out later, oh, well they didn't mean anything by that. That's just how they're dealing with me, but I am hypersensitive to it.
So one of my first jobs, I'll never forget, my boss looked at me and goes, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And inevitably I had to walk into people's houses and like act like I knew what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like I was young. Mm-hmm. I looked young. And then on top of it, I was supposed to fake what I didn't know.
Right.
And ever since then, I was like, all right, that doesn't work really well at all. Because, I mean, I got called out several times, but I just,
Right. Because
but now, at this point, I have the wisdom. I don't know that I have wisdom, but I've had enough time underneath my belt that what I'm talking about 9 times out of 10, I do know something about.
Well, and that part of that's probably your creative shining through where you've got a certain standard of what, like, goodness looks like and what, like your ideals, your morals coming through. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, fake it till you make it's great and it works pretty well for a lot of people, but like deep down at the core, I mean, really what they're saying is just lie until you don't have to lie anymore.
Right.
And it's like, well, I really don't want to lie,
Right.
Like,
it's exactly right.
So,
it's like you said, it's at the moral level, like, okay, I'm lying to you and I'm lying to me.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to fake us both out and it's not working at all.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Well, we've given a lot of love to connectors and creatives.
Yes.
Tell me, from your perspective, what is the goal? I mean, we kind of touched on this, especially with Guardian, since future voices are drawn to the nurturers and the guardians. Yeah. So talk about those voices and how,
Which one? The nurturer and the guardian?
yeah, the ones that are the hardest for you to access and the gold that they bring to the table for you, that you see the value that you see in them, in those voices.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I think the guardian's a little easier to nail down, personally. They're question people. They want to know. They're very statistic based. They're very numbers based. They're very fact based. Very logical. And they want to know by the book, how is this going to work?
Yep.
And it is expected of us to explain that even when we don't always know, because it's not hard for us to get excited about things even when we can't see the middle ground. We see the end result more. We're like, oh, we'll figure it out.
Right. I'll figure out how to get there.
Right. But 70% of the population are nurturers and guardians. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
70.
And so
Yeah.
they don't think that way.
Right.
And so 30% of us do, but the vast majority of people need that middle ground hashed out for them. And so that's the beauty of it. Kind of like I was saying, those are the people you need in your corner to say, no, I need to know all this. And they can kind of teach us how do I say this? When we pay attention to their needs, we become more aware of what we need to deliver.
Yes, completely agree with that.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
So, I mean, that's your guardian. The other thing is they're quiet. Both of them. They have the quietest voices of the five.
First and third quietest.
First and third.
Yeah.
And so guardian being the third, right?
Yeah.
And then nurture being the quietest.
Yes. Creative being the second one.
And so we really need to make room for them to talk, because we need to respect the fact that they aren't always as free to just express themselves because, one, the guardian doesn't want to be bossy. They don't want to be interrogating you all the time. They don't want to feel that way. But it's also just kind of their nature to ask those questions because they need that for their comfort. The nurturer, they just love people. Those are often the people in our companies that everybody just loves. Nobody's got a problem with the nurturers because the nurturer just going around loving on everybody, just taking care of people. How can I help? What do you need from me? How can I be of assistance? Because they really, they feel like they succeed when they see other people succeed. And so we need to let them do that, and we need to have genuine relationships with them. We don't need it can be really easy for a connector to use people as a means to an end. That's a very immature connector quality, and it's something we have to be very aware of so we don't fall into that because we can be really superficial and just use our kind of galvanizing our way of getting people fired up just to benefit us. And we need to be very respectful to the fact that, people like nurturers that really want that real genuine relationship, we've got to deliver on that. Is that pretty fair on both of those?
I think so.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, I love the present voices like nurture and guardian, which I fact checked, 73%.
73%,
Yeah,
even higher.
Yeah. That as future voices, we're looking 20 steps down the road going, look at the victory, look at the success, look at what we can build. And the nurturers and the guardians are going, yeah, but in step 3, we squash Johnny. And then in step 5, we kill the organization.
Right.
We're never going to make it to 20.
Right.
Oh, no, we'll get past it. We're fine.
Right.
Right.
And so it's those voices that bring a sense of reality and purpose and intentionality to the steps along the way. And I love those voices. Those are,
Yeah.
yeah.
But they also tend to make us the most uncomfortable because we don't know how to deal with the guardian, especially the nurturer. I don't think we're as naturally
Well, they're people too.
Yeah. We don't feel
it's
attacked
relational
by
for
them,
them.
but
Yes.
we feel attacked by guardians
Hands
because
down.
they're coming to stomp out our dreams and crush our
Right.
spirit, and that's not what they're doing at all.
At all,
They're
right.
they're there
Right.
to make sure you succeed, but they need to see it in numbers on paper.
Black and white
Exactly.
steps.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, the tendency for a connector especially is to take take questions personally,
100%.
that critically.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
Which and I mean, if you want to get into weapon systems, we kind of talked about the Guardian interrogating you. That's their attack method. They're going to question you to death until you're in a corner and you can't get yourself out, right?
Right.
And so you don't want to get them there because you will lose.
Right.
But then on the other side of that, the nurturers probably got the scariest weapon of all, which is they just back off. They kill the relationship. They stop. They don't stop talking to you, but it's just completely business only. There is no love. There is no connection at that point. It's strictly, I'll keep working because I believe in this organization, but I'm not going to care for you in the way that I did. I'm not in your corner like I was before.
Right.
And that's dark. That's scary. That's a scary place.
That's too funny.
which is fun coming from a connector because, you're a people person.
Right.
And that relationship
Yeah,
matters.
to lose that
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah, there might be some pioneers out there going, that's fine.
Right.
Going, yeah, we can work through this.
Yeah.
And we can get more done if it's just transactional and not
Yes,
all the small talk
totally.
and making sure everybody's okay. We can get more done. So
But you can't.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It may seem that way. But
You can for a very short time.
Right. It's all going to come
It'll
crashing
all
down.
come crashing down.
Right.
It's
right.
exactly right. It's all about once you lose that production, then it's done.
One of my favorite quotes from Giant, well, I'm going to paraphrase, but the idea is that businesses don't fail because of bad strategizing plans. Businesses fail because of people.
Totally agree with that statement.
I mean, that's just what it boils down to. Like, if your company's falling apart, it's because the relationships are dead and people aren't getting to live into their best version of what their voice is, who they are,
Yep.
and they're getting squashed somewhere along the line.
Right.
I guess there's a lot of things that can go wrong there, but that's one of the things that can
Let's
go
take
wrong.
that a little further down the road of the balance on a team. That if a team is very heavy in one voice, what that might do to a team versus a team that is very well balanced. Here's each of the voices, because that's another one of my favorite quotes that everybody speaks, but not everybody is heard. And so not every voice feels like they're valued at the table. And so what if a team has all of one voice or another, and what if a team has a very respectful balance of we value your voice, you have a place at the table? What do you think difference between those teams would look like?
Well, I think it depends on what, like you said, if it's all one voice, well, it depends on what the one voice is.
Sure.
Because, I mean, that outcome's going to be different for all those.
What would a team full of creative or connectors look like?
A team full of connectors, nothing would ever get done. Everybody would just be talking about it all the time.
Right.
That's the...
Because one of my favorite qualities of a connector is, it's not that you're just chasing every shine. It's easy to squirrel in a conversation. That's why we watched 2 YouTube videos before we ever hit record.
Right.
I've actually got a pretty good. I've got a pretty good example for you of what it would look like if it was nothing but connectors. Have you guys ever seen that documentary on Fire Island?
No,
They
miss that.
So these guys came together and put together this giant. It was going to be the biggest island party ever, and they had all these bands come in, and they had all these bands signed up on who was going to be there, and they've got all these. Oh, we've got these little huts you can stay in, and it's just going to be the biggest all-inclusive deal ever. But the thing is, it was just put together by a bunch of guys that all they did was advertise and get people fired up for it. And so when it finally came time to deliver, all the bands pulled out. The people got there, and they just had a bunch of it looked like a UN tent village. And so it's just a bunch of white tents. Everybody's eating grilled cheese sandwiches every day.
Oh, wow.
And there's nothing there. People are just walking around. All these billionaire kids that paid millions of dollars or thousands
my
of dollars or
goodness.
whatever. And it just all fell apart. That's what happens when it's nothing but connectors. They get everybody fired up, and it doesn't deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one of the testimonies of one of the guys in Giant that him and 2 friends co-founded a business. In hindsight, they all turned out to be 3 connectors. But they struggled and struggled and struggled to get off the ground, struggled to make any progress. And in hindsight, looking back with the knowledge of the 5 voices in their lives, he was like, every time we came together, it was just the three of us pitching our idea, trying to gain the most momentum behind my idea. And then we'd walk away and we didn't know how to fully execute. And we didn't know how to get there. So two of the guys, I think, ended up leaving the company. One ended up staying in that. And the company then, they found some other voices.
Right.
And,
Added some more to the people to the pack.
yeah. And if they'd been intentional and built, had known and been able to build a team from the start of how do we balance these voices. What does a balanced team look like? Where do they go?
Well, are you saying like the way they communicate?
Sure, communicate to
You communicate in
to execute.
as far as like in board meetings and things, you communicate in order of voice order. Nurturers are going to go first, creatives are going to speak second, guardians are going to speak third, then connectors, then pioneers, because connectors and pioneers are always talking. And so it's easy for them to speak over everyone else and drown out their voices. And so you need to start with the quietest voice in the room, which is the nurturer, and let them speak their mind and let them know that they're comfortable. They can be comfortable and they can speak because we cherish what they have to say, because they're the people. They're like ground floor relationship people, and we trust them, and we trust guardians very much, because they're the statistics people, they're the analyst people, and we need to let creatives take all the time they need to express themselves, because they need the time to do that, to work out their thoughts. And then, connectors and pioneers go last because it's easy for them to just lord over everybody.
Yeah. That, and everybody gets a pass. This is not a, hey, nurture, I know you're not super comfortable speaking and you may not have anything to say, but you must speak.
Sure.
Yeah, everybody gets a pass that, if you go around the room and are evaluating an idea or a direction or something like that, go to your nurtures first. But if they're like, no, I'm good. I don't have anything to add at the moment.
It's about letting people know that you value their role in
Absolutely.
the company.
Yeah.
That they have that opportunity.
You have a very important role to play here. And we know it's different from, the nurture is different from the creative, and they're different from the pioneer.
Right.
Everybody's got their role. It's all important. It's like cogs in a machine. Like, you can't take one out, the machine stops working.
Right.
And so it's more about just letting them feel comfortable, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Does that answer that?
I think so.
Totally.
I think so.
I think it does. I think it's just interesting that it's great to make sure that, everybody understands that they, have their voice.
Yeah.
They can have their voice in that midst of that group.
Yeah.
And recognizing that, hey, you have a say in this.
Yeah.
It might not be the final answer, but everybody can have their say in this, which I think is huge.
For sure.
Yeah.
Something else I did just think of too is like in evaluating the life cycle of your company, you can tell where you're at by who's kind of got the reins at the moment. If your connectors, your creatives, and your pioneers are calling all the shots, you're probably in a launch phase of your organization, or you are getting ready to renovate your organization, because it can't always be them, or else nothing will ever get done. You've got to turn it over to the guardian and the nurturer to kind of evaluate things and say, okay, yeah, this is good. We can move forward. It's kind of like that story you were telling here a while back. I don't know if you've ever talked about it on here, but Nike was making the shoes.
Oh, yeah.
And like they had the creative team, everything's coming together. Okay,
the
we've got our
R&D
ideas.
development, yeah.
We're making it happen. We're pushing out the product, but they don't have anybody in the middle going, well, wait, nobody's ever going to wear these. You know what I mean? Like, these are unwearable shoes.
Right.
They fall apart.
Or the shoe costs $500 to make.
Exactly.
Right.
You need numbers people, and you need people to go, well, wait, no, they don't. They said they don't like that kind of shoe. Like, why are we making that shoe? But Nike skipped that step. But once they incorporated people in that step, they stopped having that problem, because it was just like, oh, we just need people in the middle going, is this actually a good idea? Do we push this to development?
Yeah, a refinement of the idea, a refinement of the process.
Right.
And then you put it into execution.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, the voices are just incredibly valuable when we recognize those in each other, when we value that input, that contribution to the team. It's incredibly valuable. And as you think about, if you're in a business and you're thinking about a new hire, think through the voices. Like, man, what are we missing?
Right.
We don't have any connectors. We don't have any nurtures. We don't have any, what do we need to help push us forward? And it's likely found in the balance of the voices. On your
Well,
team.
and I can say from taking it today, and talking with Zach and you both about this, it is definitely a lot more attainable / understandable versus the other different formats that they have out there. It's just, this has been a great observation time and a great time for me to think about things and be able to relate to what's near and dear to my heart, which has also helped me realize of what the things that I need to be looking at for the people that are surrounding me as well in my team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I also, we're probably going to set up a time or place where we need to have you guys come in and hang out with my team to try to figure out who is what and what, so that we can help make sure that we're utilizing everybody's strengths for the benefits of the bigger picture.
For sure.
Absolutely. We'd be glad to do that.
Honestly, man, for me, what I think the biggest plus of Giant is, the Giant system, the toolkit, everything, is it may not be, it's not anything new. What they're talking about isn't anything new. It's all based on Myers-Briggs, right? If you have a Myers-Briggs personality test, sure, you know what you are. But the thing about Giant is it puts it in like a language that once you've kind of learned the toolkit, once you've just kind of learned, oh, this is who each of those people are, and these are some basic tools to apply to who those voices are, you've got a framework that you can all now speak together. Mm-hmm. And so, I knew a lot of this stuff about myself, but I never had the appropriate language to explain it to other people.
That's exactly right.
And now I can. And I can just be like, oh, well, this is the issue. This is how I feel. It's because of, X, Y, or Z. Whereas before, I'd probably just, muddle around with words and do the typical creative thing and not make any sense,
Try to explain it, but not be effective.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so this gives you a language that you and your team, or you and your family, or you and whatever, it can work in anything. But it's a way of communicating with each other about who you are, why you're acting the way you are, or why they're acting the way they are. Husbands, don't do that to your wives. But but at the same time, it just clears everything up for everybody, I think, in the end. And it's so easy a kid could do it. It's designed so a 13-year-old could totally run with this thing.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're listening in today and you've made it to the end, we, there's a link in the show notes where you can go and take the 5 Voices assessment. It's a free link, free account. And you actually have access to all of the toolkit that Zach was just talking about. It's a lifetime account. You have access to it. You can go in and you can learn everything on your own.
Literally, the Giant system is free. The only thing anybody would ever pay for is if they want somebody to come alongside them and walk them through it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Help coach and help guide. Yeah.
And it's so beneficial. Download this free thing. Make it happen. You'll love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Zach, thanks for joining us, man.
Zach.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
We didn't even get a chance to talk about
you.
Where you come from,
I
all
honestly
of your.
prefer it that way. To be
I know
completely
you-
honest with
We're
you.
gonna have you back. We'll have to have you back.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Because you got a few pursuits in your
Yes.
life.
I'm looking forward to figuring those out and chat
Yeah.
with you more about those. So we'll have to have you back. And thanks for spending time with you, Thanks for spending time with us.
Also, I'm going to go ahead and plug something because you guys need to go ahead and make it happen because I've been pushing this on you for a while.
Uh-oh.
You need to get my buddy Chris Molina on here.
Oh yes,
He's the
yes.
real
Yes.
deal. You'll like him. He's
All
a
right.
good dude.
We got to reach out to him.
Very knowledgeable individual. Good stuff.
Sounds good.
cool.
We'll make it happen.
Yes.
Now you have a listening audience that just heard me call you out. So
Right.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, we're going to wrap it up here. So give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Yes.
Send us a question. All
Check
of
the
this
show
today
notes.
started because our friend Randy sent in a question going, I want to know what Chris is.
Yeah.
And so shout out
Thanks,
to Randy. And yeah.
And check the show notes to make sure that, you can tap into this great resource. So,
Absolutely. We'll see you next time on Leading Serving.
Thanks.